Good morning. The sun beat me again today for the sunrise stroll and chat because the morning is very tightly packed. I did the Instagram post already. Got a filming commitment before 7:30. So that's part of the agenda. And the thoughts today are, it's amazing with scripture. The more we ponder it, the more we try to understand it, the more we comment on it, the more fruits hanging from the tree there, The more fruits hanging from the tree. These ones aren't ripe yet, but let me show you some others. And we still have flowers here that started, when did they start? For Pentecost, the red flowers. Wow, June, July, August, September. So I want to take you back here to our oh boy, pomegranate tree. It's amazing, it really changed its form. I'm really wondering what the fruit's going to be like, because it was fallen down, and our good gardener put in a stake and got it tied up, and it's had a lot more fruit this year. And I need to ask somebody here, I need to ask the gardener if they're ripe already. We need to leave them a little bit more time, Maybe they're ripe already. So that one there has a little bit of color, but sometimes I thought to be a little redder. So you won't find those pomegranates on this tree over here, because this is a lemon tree. And each one does its own type of fruit. All this marvelous fruit, And Jesus used that image today. You don't find lemon fruit on thorns. The figs didn't do very well this year. They didn't get ripe for some reason. And apparently it's a thing in the region, and I don't know the reasons for it. But like there's a little green one up there at the top. And let me point it out just underneath my finger there. We might find one closer here. And there were quite a few. The nets to keep the birds off them. It's a little bit tattered with the wind now. There's a fig, you see, but none of them went beyond the ripening stage, which is very strange. I don't know the reason for that. So Jesus talking about the trees this morning, the fruit trees, and you don't get fruit from thorns. Oops. There were more around here. And there's a little one in there. You see right there. They're a bit smaller, and they just stayed green the whole time, which is strange. And these stalks here won't produce any fruit. At least it's edible and interesting for us. This fig tree did have quite a few nice ones, but there were very few. It's a small little fig tree. And it had very few figs, but they were delicious. That was quite a while ago. So it's about the division in the human person, really. That's what the readings touch on. And the ambivalence of our decisions and our loyalties. And our ability also to fake. Because we can say words and we don't carry through. It's like signing a check and there's no money in the bank to cover it. And the check bounces. Is the check bouncing? And so there's a great calling in the scriptures today for us to get our act together. And that word of St. Paul about being double in our worship. And he was trying to teach the Corinthians that even though the offerings to the idols, the idols really don't exist, but it's a sign of pagan worship, that they couldn't participate in that and also participate in the table of the Lord, in the Eucharist, in the altar. And so we have a couple of very big words here. Lord. And Lord applied to Jesus is really the same meaning as it is in the Hebrew scriptures. And it shows how early, because the letter to the Corinthians is very early, we're talking about maximum 20 years after the death and resurrection and Pentecost. And this is really an amazing text in that way, because we can see clearly the early Christian community already recognized in a very mature terminology the lordship of God. And that's where also sacrifice comes into account. It comes into play. And here we have an altar also. And we actually have another altar here that I can show you in a moment outdoors. The altar was the point of union of heaven and earth. You can see that all through the scriptures from the very beginning. The very first altar built to worship God. The sacrifices of Cain and Abel. And from the very beginning, there's a very powerful moment when Gideon, if you want to check it out some point, chapter 6 in Judges, and altar is a very big word there. And he tears down the altar of Baal. And it's a serious crisis in the community. Read that. Read chapter 6 of Judges. And there you'll see the weight of the word altar. And they wanted to kill Gideon because he did it. He took down the altar of Baal and the pole, the sacred pole beside the altar. And there we can see the struggle for true worship. And so we have the word Lord and the word altar, and then the sacrifices on the altar. And one of the things that has happened in the Enlightenment, which strongly came after the Reformation, is in a certain sense a return also to Gnosticism in one aspect, that it's about knowing stuff. And we can know a lot, and that's very important. But knowledge on its own doesn't save us, because we're beings that were created also to have dominion of the earth, to be fruitful and multiply. We were given so much talents, the parable of the talents, and we're supposed to do with them. We're not just supposed to come back and say, I know you were a just and righteous Lord, and here are your talents back. No, the expectation is that our talents grow. And they don't grow by looking at them and just thinking about them. They grow with doing. So our faith is required for doing, and this is exactly what Luke's Gospel is all about. The end of chapter 6 of Luke's Gospel has the teaching of the Beatitudes, the chapter, but at the end of it, it's about doing it. It's not just about knowing it. So here's an outdoor altar, and the fact that the tips on the sides is kind of also a little hint at the horns of the altar for tying the sacrifice to the altar. It's also a boat-shaped altar. So the altar, how many people have prayed here, so many pilgrims, it's been beautiful. You know, over the years, long before we had Duke and Alton built, that's where we had our Eucharist. Outdoors here in the wind. Sometimes the rain, but that was rare. So we have big words there calling us today. You know, to build your house on sand or to build it on rock. I just look up here in the hills. There's actually major rocks, and I don't know if you remember way back in the beginning of November last year and the year before, we did a little video of the tombs down there on the edge of Mount Arbel. And one of them is in a huge rock, and you can see this big rock up here in the mountain. Let me zero in. It's a huge chunk of rock. I'm going to put it right in the center of the screen there for you. We've been up there a couple of times with Sunrise Stroll and Chat. We must go back there sometime again. Look at that big rock. These are very big rocks up there, okay? And to build a house on rock or to build it on earth. And so there's a big stone with engravings. It's not near as big as that, but it's not much smaller. And it has 3 burial spots cut into it. And it rolled down the hill because the erosion took away the soil from under it. Erosion, the erosion of the storms of life, the erosion of the hard times and our faith, the erosion of the worldly spirit eating into us. And to build on rock, to build on God's word, to build on doing. And you know, another thing about the word Lord, actually the word Lord is very much anchored in understanding God as mercy. And that's also going to be a big theme tomorrow, in tomorrow's readings. God, the word Lord, is the Lord of mercy, the Lord who had mercy on his people, the Lord who forgave them their sin. So to say Lord and not be merciful, to say Lord and be judgmental, to say Lord and be damning of others, to have hostility and enmity of others. You see the contradiction. And so getting our act together means that our life's doing is in sync with our life's believing. That our life's faith is shaping our life. And we have lots of frustrations and difficulties. That's part of the course. And on the other hand, surviving those and thriving through difficulties is also a marvelous strengthening of our lives and our inner self, our will, also our understanding about life, about the preciousness of life, the extraordinary growth people go through, people who survive illnesses, people who survive major setbacks, major difficulties. And we grow stronger. But also major difficulties can also undermine us. And to grow strong, to be built on God, to be faithful. And again, we don't have the strength by ourselves. So it's not a Tarzan effort, primarily because it's grace. And God gives us the strength, but he wants us doing. And we can't say we didn't have the strength, because he gives us the strength to do. That heron stretched out her neck really tall twice in the last 2 minutes, and now it's couched down again. So maybe she's just relaxed and not on high alert. It seems like when their neck is stretched out fully, they're on high alert. So that end of chapter 6 of Luke is very interesting. A house built on sand will crumble under the pressures. And a house built on rock, a house where our life is continually being built. And we're building not just on our passions of anger and frustrations and reactions to the moment, but we're really building long term. Building with mercy, acts of mercy every day. What a beautiful way to build our house. Bricks of mercy. That our life is a house of mercy. That we can also be merciful. If the Lord is merciful, that we are merciful. We're in His image and likeness. For all our Jewish friends following, Shabbat Shalom. And a wonderful, blessed Saturday to everybody. And see you later. Count on your prayers for all the work going on here. The house is full. We have many, many pilgrims, thanks be to God. This week was very full, very busy. And many people are being deeply blessed. We had a big group yesterday of Seventh-day Adventists, very dedicated, pious people. See you later, alligators.